Welcome to Her Voice, Her Story. Join host Cassandra Moultrie as we talk to women of color, sharing motivational stories that deliver truth and promote self-worth, covering all aspects of life. Let's break through the negative labels placed on women of color.
All right, welcome to another episode of Her Voice, Her Story. And today we are going to have a wonderful conversation with a wonderful woman of color that I know is going to just inspire you and motivate you with her story. So today we're talking to Lacey C Clark. And Lacey she wears a multitude of hats.
Mm-hmm.
She's a writer, she's a storyteller, she is a cultural producer, an empowerment personality, an actress, and which really warms my heart is she's a world traveler.
I am.
So Lacey is also known as Miss Phenomenal Everywhere, and she'll tell us about that a little later.
Yeah.
Multifaceted personification of expressive art, rich culture, soulful global traveler, and a fierce femininity who inspires the masses of all backgrounds, just to say true to themselves. Her beliefs in self-love and empowerment are reflected in her brands, and she will tell us about those. Phenomenally You, Phenomenal Everywhere, and Sisters Sanctuary Collective. Lacey's brands impact the entire world, providing inspirational messages, which are laced with self-esteem boosting content. Her work has been recognized by, just to name a few, BET, Heart and Soul Magazine, Rolling Out, and Radio One. That's just to name a few, okay? For 2 decades, Lacey's brands and her work has reached over 20 countries, 5 continents, touching the lives of millions both online and offline. So welcome, Lacey.
Thank you, Cassandra. I'm like, oh, is that me?
Yes. That is you. So Lacey, and actually I will tell you, Lacey is with us all the way from Mexico.
I am.
Where she is living now. So, that's another story that we'll hopefully have time to talk about. If not, you'll come back and tell us more. But Lacey, all of that. Now, you grew up in North Philly.
I did.
And you proclaimed that you had low self-esteem.
I did.
So just hearing what I tell people about who you are now, what as a little girl what was going on? Why were you at that point, and how did you move past that? What's that story?
Great question. So, young Black girl growing up in North Philadelphia. And for those who don't know, North Philadelphia is lower economic. It's like, where they have the stereotypes of Black folk. I'm an African American, so they put us in places that say you're going to stay here and we expect these things from you. And usually those things are low expectation. Low, IQ, low academics, low production. I mean, just low. Everything's low, right?
Yeah.
Nothing funny about that, but I'm just saying how everything is just, the low bar. And so while I had a lot of inspiration and support and encouragement from my mother, I also went to Freedom Theater, which is also a Crossroads Performing Arts, so basically a Black performing arts school. The environment in general basically said, you are less than.
Okay.
I grew up in the crack epidemic. So my community was, flooded with crack.
Right.
And so you had a lot of things. I had a lot of things around me that spoke to why I shouldn't see myself as whole and beautiful and amazing and worthy. And then also image, as a dark brown skinned Black woman, young Black girl. It was really like, where do you find your stride? Where's your beauty? Because that wasn't what was promoted, as we all know. Colorism is a huge issue in our community. And so, when I looked on television, when I looked at what was beautiful or what they told me was beautiful, wasn't my skin complexion.
Right. No.
So all of those things together, being from North Philadelphia, being dark brown skin, being, in the crack epidemic, my father was around, but it wasn't consistent.
Okay.
But I definitely had a relationship with my father, and that was a journey in terms of us getting back to trying to, heal and have a great relationship today. But, kind of basically for the most part, single parent, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different factors that played into, again, me not having all the resources and support that I know I deserved as a young Black girl.
Right.
So that's where the self-esteem issues came from. Media, my community, the government, all of those things together.
It's a compound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The well-oiled machine.
That system.
Yes. You got it.
Yes.
You got it.
Okay. Then you said you went to performing arts school. Now, was that something that you wanted to do or something your mom thought would be a good outlet for you?
Well, so I started out with performing arts at Freedom Theater, again, which is in Philadelphia. A lot of people you may know today, went to Freedom Theater for the arts. But for me, I started out at 6 years old. So
Okay.
that was kind of like what I was introduced to. And I guess my mother and my father was really instrumental in that decision, really saw that I had some kind of light or, kind of energy that was like, okay, we need to channel her energy somewhere.
Okay.
And so Freedom Theater was the way. That was actually what saved me from getting sucked into all the negativity of North Philadelphia, because, I had friends who, got pregnant before they were 15. I had, friends who were drug dealers and, you know what I mean? So that whole kind of thing. So to answer your point, they saw a light, I guess, in me, and then they put me into performing arts school, and then I fell in love with it.
Okay.
So it evolved, and then I became it was all about performing arts and being able to express myself. So that's how I kind of learned at an early age to express myself through theater and dance and vocal as well.
Okay. So in that experience, did you say to yourself, okay, this is my path. I'm going to be, the entertainer, the artist for the rest of my life?
Great question. I think there was a point where that was my life. Well, so here's what I do know early. This is what I did know early at 14. I remember 14, that I wanted to make an impact on the world.
Okay.
And because I saw how my community was affected by media. I saw how my community was affected by entertainment. I definitely saw how my peers were influenced by the hottest shoes and influenced to, the language. I mean, I just saw how powerful media was. And I knew at 14 that I wanted to get in to make a positive influence. Okay, if it could be negative, why can't it be positive? Why can't it be it? So I knew that at 14. So, how I wanted to do that, at one point I was studying theater, and then I went to school for film. But then what happened along the way was all of the red tape they don't tell you about when you're a pure artist, right? When you're a pure artist saying, hey, I want to tell this story. I have this to say. It's well, wait a minute. It's a whole lot of red tape involved in getting that story to market. Right?
Oh.
It's a whole lot of stuff you got to go through. It's a whole lot of hoops you got to jump through. It's a whole lot of, quote unquote, dues you got to pay, and, you got to kiss. You get my point. So it's a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
The answer to your point is, I wanted to make an impact on the world through media, art in some way, because I understood how powerful it was.
Okay. Now, did you have mentors along the way in that process?
Great question. I kind of did, but not really, because I think, so Fatima Gamble was my mentor. She's Kenny Gamble's wife. At one point, another mentor was a prominent PR person. I did, but they weren't doing exactly what I wanted to do. They were just positive women that poured into me.
Okay.
And they had some positive things to say, and I looked at them as somebody or people who had, that had some positivity or some things, some goodness for me to see, specifically coming from North Philadelphia, some goodness for me to see. So I would say I didn't have a mentor that specifically kind of modeled what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go, but I was around influential women. And so I think that's the answer to that question. That's the answer.
Okay. Yeah, they weren't doing exactly what you wanted to do, but they gave you that boost that you knew, okay, I can do XYZ.
Yes. And yes, they did that for sure.
So you started traveling.
I did.
What sparked that travel bug?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I basically studied abroad. That was the first experience of me traveling abroad, was studying abroad.
Now, studying abroad, how old were you when you did that?
I was 19.
Okay.
19.
Well, did you have just like this major eye-opening experience, or you're like, wow?
Well, let me take you back. I'm going to answer that. So when I was about 7, I think it was like 7 or 8, which is crazy. So you never know how, I want people to hear this, that we never know how we impact people with just the small things that we say. Okay. When I was 7 or 8, I remember sitting on the floor at my aunt's house. And my aunt's child's father, they weren't married, but her boyfriend, my aunt's boyfriend's sister had said in passing, I'm going to do my residency in Hawaii. She's Black, my residency is as a doctor, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Hawaii, where is that? I want to go. This is at 7.
Wow.
I didn't understand what Hawaii was. I didn't really I wasn't really I didn't travel with my family. I mean, we went to like down south for the family reunion, but in terms of like the idea of traveling internationally, that wasn't really part of my life. My point is, when she said that, something in me clicked.
Okay.
I don't know what, but it was something that a switch got turned on. So at that point, there was an openness, I would say, for wanting to explore different locations. Didn't know what Hawaii was, didn't know what it meant. I just thought I wanted to go there.
You were going.
Right, exactly. So fast forward. So when I was in college, I went to NYU. And so going to New York University, I was around, so many different diverse people from all over the world, so many different economic statuses, so many different experiences. I'm in like the richest country in the world. richest city in the world. You know what I mean? So like all of this stuff is happening. And so I say, I didn't realize I had all this. I started beginning to realize I had all these things at my fingertips or resources I didn't have when I was in North Philadelphia. Yeah. And that was the extreme culture shock. Like, wow, like I could literally access anything I want through NYU. Like I could go anywhere. You know what I mean? Working with Spike Lee. I mean, I could do anything at NYU.
Right.
So to answer that question directly, what I'm saying is when I got to school and I saw that the world had literally opened up for me, I wanted to get in. I wanted to go into the world. And my first inlet into the world was Paris.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome.
I lived in Paris. And that was my first experience traveling, and that changed my life. It was major. That's
awesome.
It was major. Mm-hmm.
So when you studied abroad, went to Paris, then you came back to the States.
I did.
Finished school.
I did.
And then took off in the arts world, just being the creative.
Well, I was a creative, but I also created my company after high school. I'm sorry, after college, at the NYU.
Okay.
So I created my company, and that's because I remember they didn't tell me. This is why I do empowerment work, and I have a 8S empowerment system for young women who are transitioning from high school to college. And the reason why I created this 8S empowerment system is because there were a lot of things they didn't tell me. Specifically being a first generation person, I didn't understand how are we supposed to navigate this resourced world. I didn't know.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I say all that to say that when I got out, what they didn't say is that you had to work some kind of minuscule job or some kind of low level job, work your way at that time, work your way up in the industry, network. They didn't tell you all of that. They didn't even tell you how to do all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Make relationships, blah, blah, blah. Then if they like you, then they'll hire you to do this. And then I'm like, whoa, wait, I want to make a difference. Like, I want to make a I don't want to kiss behind. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Have to like smile on people's face. I don't really, I want to make that difference. So that's when I came out of school and I said, I'm going to create a company. And that's when I created Sister Sanctuary, because that was really what I had in my heart to do since 14. Was like, I want the school to make an impact, and to get the resources to make an impact, not to like be playing this game. You know what I'm saying? Like this,
just wasting time.
Yes, So to answer your point is, the company was about, it's called Sister Sanctuary, which is still a company today. Sister Sanctuary was about empowerment for young women, creating spaces for empowerment for young women. And so in response to the negative messages of media. So that was my background, media. So that's how I fused, my knowledge and my study of strategically, how media works strategically. Marketing is strategic.
Yes,
all of that strategic. It's not random that they got these stereotypes. You know what I'm saying? This is created. You know what I mean? So all of that training that I got at New York University in the media background, I put that into, creating outlets for women to really find self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, regardless of what was happening in the media.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. That much needed when you started, still needed today.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Right.
There's a constant negative bombardment coming from
absolutely
all media sources.
Absolutely.
And, it's difficult for our younger women to navigate.
Absolutely.
It's difficult for women who are a little older to navigate through also and deal with and just reflect the crap that comes with all that.
Absolutely. And how it affects us.
Right. And we may not even realize it until, it gets to that tipping point, or, someone brings it to our attention, and then we like stop and say, oh, well, I am buying into something that's negative. I am buying into the wrong narrative about me and who I am.
Absolutely.
And what I can do and what I can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and my worth and and my beauty.
Yes.
I mean, it's so much that it influences, and it keeps us in a box in a lot of ways, and it keeps us suppressed in a lot of ways, because we think that we have to aspire to these standards created by someone else. That's not us. That's not our community. That's not what our values are. Yeah. Exactly. So you get it. It's still relevant today. Exactly. 100%. 100%. For young and not so young. Or old
young and not so young.
Yeah.
for the well-seasoned woman.
The well-seasoned. There we go. Yes, the well-seasoned woman.
Yeah, that's it.
I like that.
Well, so during that process and just empowering the women, what was your biggest challenge?
Great question. I love that question. I think I wouldn't say it was a challenge, but I would say there's resistance. Not necessarily from the people, but it's like swimming upstream.
Okay.
Because we have a culture and a society that says, here's the standard we're going to create for you, and you better fit in. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, then something's wrong with you. And so here I am saying, no, F that standard. Excuse me.
Okay.
F that standard, right? And we can create something else.
Right.
So it was like swimming upstream. You know what I mean? So you got to like really, it's so much effort and energy to be able to create an alternative or to offer an alternative and really stand with that, because you got so much energy that's, again, saying, no, this is what we want you to do. This is what we want you to be. I think what was rewarding about it was when the light bulb went off in the heads of the young women and women that I worked with, and they are able to realize that a lot of how they're thinking about themselves is coming from outside. Right. And that outside influence is creating internal pressure about who you think you need to be when they tell you this is what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, so to answer that question, it really is really about the external forces that are pervasive, powerful, dominant, with full machines behind them, billions of dollars behind them, right?
Millions, yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? And then I'm saying to a young Black girl in North Philadelphia, where I came from, I went back to community when I first started. I want you to realize that's a lie. I want you to realize
Yeah.
that